me talk about something that I've been incorporating in my classes recently, and I'm kind of excited about it. So a little bit about me, so you kind of understand my background. I teach in the College of Business, and because so many of our students are expected to work in groups and teams when they start their career, we do incorporate a lot of group projects. In both of my creative marketing classes and my consumer behavior classes, I use client-based projects. So I bring in real clients. Usually it's a local small business or nonprofit. That way the students get real world experience, and those businesses and organizations hopefully will get some value out of the project in the end. And before, at the beginning of the semester, just so you know where I'm at, I give them all a very detailed course, our detailed project packet. You know how it is with all the instructions, everything's in there, right? But and then also a detailed grading rubric. So theoretically, they have everything they need to be successful in the project. However, I was finding that the projects overall were very weak. And more specifically, I noticed that there were a few things that kept showing up in a lot of the end results. Few groups seemed to follow the instructions carefully. So even though everything was outlined, you know how it is, I don't know if they weren't reading it, they weren't asking questions. Anyway, I'd get the projects at the end, and I'm like, how did you miss this? It's clearly outlined. I'd even put checkpoints in there that said, be sure to see me because this is where other teams get derailed. And, well, you know how it is, very few would come to see me. Secondly, many groups were not effectively integrating the course material into their projects. So I found this really surprising, but the end result really incorporated very little content from the course. So that was very frustrating. Third, many groups weren't working together. I'm sure you've seen it when you assign a project. What do they usually do? Divide it up in the beginning, right? You do this, you do that, you do this. Then at the end, they throw it all together and they turn it in a variety of fonts and spacing. It's always fun to read. But that's really defeating what I believe is the whole point of working in groups, is to take advantage of multiple perspectives and really taking advantage of the different areas of expertise that the students have. And fourth, groups with problems would not bring it up until the very end of the semester, right? Oh, there's somebody who's never coming to any of the meetings. There's somebody who's dominating all of our discussion. You know, all those kind of complaints you get right at the end. And at that point, there wasn't really much I could do to try to get them back on track. It was kind of a lost cause, which meant some of those students would get very poor evaluations that could negatively impact their grade. And then I realized that I was making the assumption that the students knew kind of how to work with others, the basic group dynamics, and I realized that wasn't the case. So what I did was I started what I'm calling in-class coaching, but essentially it's kind of instructor-directed group work time. Because previously I would assign the projects at the beginning of the semester, give them these extensive instructional packets, the grading rubric, and then they turn it in at the end of the semester with bad results. So I started shifting the group work time to during class, which at first I was a little frustrated because, I mean, you know, we're like, they can do that on their own. Why do I have to do this? But through the process, I found it to be pretty valuable. So I think about working in teams and even the concept of thinking as skills that the students can develop, right? So I started to think about how coaches motivate athletes to perform better. A coach can't do it for them, right? They can just direct them and try to guide them to a better performance. So that's the approach I take in class. So I'm not telling them what to do, but kind of, you know, poking and prodding them a little bit and hoping that they're going to get there. What I really want them to do is have that aha moment themselves. You know, that's the most rewarding part of being a teacher, right? So, basic implementation, just to kind of give you a quick overview of how I make this happen. First off, I schedule some group work time during class. This varies. In one of my courses, I'll set aside, actually we do end up doing most of the project in class, But in my other course, we've got a lot more content. I have to do some lectures, so I'll set aside maybe 30 minutes here and there, maybe a couple of whole classes this semester. Whatever works for you, you can kind of fit it into your own schedule. But then I briefly go over the topics and the goals for the day. So I don't want to spend a lot of time going over everything they should already know, but the point is to remind them what our focus is for that day. And they already have the documents, because those are already put together, so they're already, they've got the tools they need. Then I break the students into groups, and I observe and I engage. So I walk around, do my rounds with the groups, look and see how well are they following the instructions, the guides, how well are they integrating the course material into the project, how well are the members communicating with each other and working as a team. Then I can use that to kind of push them in the right direction. And I use some specific tactics like verbalizing objections to the group's ideas, so kind of questioning what they're working on to kind of get them to think at a deeper level, ask challenging questions, or get them to challenge their own assumptions, and suggest opposing viewpoints. So through the observing and engaging, I'm able to kind of push the teams in the right direction. And because it's a smaller group, I can account for each group's individual challenges, because every group is different, and they'll struggle at different points. So this allows me to more pinpoint what's going on with each group and make those changes if needed. Oh, and I think the Think Center, Bonnie took all these pictures that I stole. And finally, so the overall value, a lot of us already use the flipped classroom approach, so you've got all these documents already ready, so it's taking advantage of a lot of the work you've already done and just setting aside some class time, maybe shrinking discussion a little bit, and then adding some time in for the class projects. And ultimately, I found the projects to be much stronger. Specifically, the groups are less likely to miss key instructions. So I think this is happening for two reasons. The first is because before they had no real incentive to read those guides, but once they knew they had to come to class ready to work with their groups, who was going to get mad at them if they weren't prepared? Not me. It was their other group members, right? And we know that can kind of be a little bit more influential for them. And also because it was me speaking with 3, 4, 5, however many group members there are, they were more comfortable to ask questions. And so that really opened a whole area of communication with me as well. Secondly, the groups more effectively integrated the course material into the projects. So I was able to kind of keep them on track, make sure they weren't missing points, which is really good for the end result. The small businesses, the local nonprofits got a much more valuable outcome as well. Third, groups actually worked together. So they started to realize as they were working in class that each member had something unique to offer. And so instead of dividing it up, they would work more as a team. So that just made the project, I think, much more insightful. And then fourth, the group evaluations were better. I rarely now, if ever, have a negative evaluation at the end of the semester that could impact someone's grade, because those issues are brought up early on in the semester and I'm able to help them resolve those issues. So not only are the students better able to produce a quality project, incorporating that course material, but they learn how to work as a team, which I think is a valuable skill in whatever area they're going into. So anyway, that's just a little bit about something I'm doing in class, and I will turn it over to here.
Everybody, first of all, I'm very glad to have this opportunity to talk with you all, to exchange some ideas in our classroom. I know this is a long day, especially it's almost 6 o'clock. I will try to make my presentation a little bit more interesting. Well, I would like to know, any of you use electronic portfolio in your class as an assessment tool? or have you heard electronic portfolio? And are you blogging? No?
We're ready to learn.
Ready to learn. Do you read blogs? Okay. So normally, what kind of content you read all those blogs?
More personal than I want to reveal. I'm amazed at what people are, I know you were talking about it for professional reasons, but I am amazed at what people put in their blogs online.
That's true. That's true. And that's also the very beginning, people use blogs. You know, Facebook, LinkedIn, and all those kind of social networking. So people exchange what I'm doing every day and what's the interesting thing I'm doing right now. Maybe my friends, my family interested in that. However, we can definitely use it in class. And I want to share some of my class projects I used. I've been using electronic portfolio for like over 10 years. In the past, I asked students to create a portfolio in the website or Word or PDF or PowerPoint, and then burn everything on CD. So at the end of the term, they turn in their CD to me. After these website applications or blog softwares available online, I started using blog and then turn blog into a blog folio. So that's alternative of electronic portfolio. Why I'm doing this? Because I think, first of all, I want to give the definition of electronic portfolio. Electronic portfolio is actually the purposeful collect students' work, which demonstrate students' efforts, progress, and achievements during the term. So at the very beginning, we ask students to collect materials, which means any project they complete, or the discussions they participate. And then in the end, everything is in one place. In the past, it's either on CD or in a website. Now, everything is in a blog. So at the very beginning of the term, I will ask students to create a blog account. And if you have read blog, you know the first post is always at the bottom. So I ask each student to give a brief introduction about themselves. Who are they? What's the purpose of the in this class? Maybe like our graduate course, undergraduate course is a required elective. What's their learning goal in this term? So they have a brief introduction. And then following that, every week, there should be some kind of reflections. These reflections may be if we have some materials to read. And then I will give some reflection questions. So students will discuss what's the idea, their understanding. You reflect their understanding. And I divided students into groups. And if students post their reflection, their group member will read and comment on this reflection. So for example, this is the chapter 1 to chapter 3 reading, and there are questions like what is the educational technology literacy, and why it is important for educators. And there are 2 comments there. Okay, I divided group into 3, so each member will read another 2 and then give comments. This will continue every week. For this class, it's a graduate course. I teach pre-service or in-service teachers to integrate technology into their classroom. So they will learn technology skills and also the strategies of how to integrate this technology into their class. So for example, the first project is a group project where they learn the functions of Google Docs. You know Google Docs? You can complete like a Word file, PowerPoint file, Excel file online. And then you can invite your group member to edit your file. So that is a great collaboration for your students. And being a teacher, you can go in there and view the history so that you know who did what when. Okay? In that case, you will tell the group work whether these students participant or actively participant or not. So it's easy to tell. I want my students to learn this so that they can in the future integrate it into their own classroom. And also there is a survey, that's the Google form. Google form can be used like you create a survey to know the technology background of your class, or you can test their knowledge, create a worksheet or a quiz so that the answers should go to your email address quickly, so that I will just show students how to use this and what they can use for this. And also the discussions, you can create a listserv so that invite your class there. This gives teachers the flexibility in the future. They can communicate to their students and the parents of their kids. So these are the tools they can use in the classroom in the future. But first of all, they have to master the skill, know how to use it. And once they complete this project, they will write reflections like what they learned there. And what are the strategies or ideas they think that can be used in the classroom. So this is the reflection. And keep going on, we do some other project like Scoop It. That's kind of publication platform. If students are interested in one topic, for example, who teaches math or science, he can just pick keywords, and then all the related articles will be published here, and it's updated automatically. So that will be a good site for a teacher to show the students in the future. So these are the tools my students experience. And this is one of theirs. And also like the Trackstar, the online bookmark, like Thinking Link. Sometimes if people want to explain some idea, they can use this Thinking Link. You can upload the image and insert these tabs. Each type can be like an explanation, a website, a video, and audio. All those, just some free online applications my students can learn, and then in the future they can apply to their own class, like online quiz maker, online rubrics, and also the experience. So this just keep going on, like they create movies, they create these podcastings. Each time when they create any of the project, there is a lecture. I will tell them what it is, why it is useful in the class. So when after they create the project, they will have the reflection. Every week there are different kind of project till the end. And whenever they finish the project, they will have the reflection and the link the project at the very end. In electronic portfolio, we call these as artifacts. The artifacts are the project completed in the course. So that's the artifacts the students complete. And at the very end, students will ask to write a reflection about this whole term. What did they learn? What's the strong and weak point? Why do they think those are the strong or the weak point? So this will end up the whole course reflection. As we all know, John Dewey said, people do not learn from their experience, but learn from reflecting their experience. So you can think about this. People really learn when they reflect what they did, what they learned. So that's why this is very important for students to learn some new knowledge, to remember what they learned. And also I give students opportunity to revise their project, to achieve better. For me, I think the more time they devoted to the work, the more they gain from there. And the purpose for me is to help them to master the skill, to know how to use it. It's not like you failed or you are good, not one-time thing. Of course, it gives me more burden to evaluate students' work because students submit it twice or 3 times or even 4 times. But they did learn. At the very end of the term, when they look back, they feel proud of themselves. And this is not done. We have standards come with the class. That's NIST, National Standard for Teachers. You have to master instructional technology skills. So each of them will have these standards. Under each standard, they will have the benchmark there and their reflections. Why do they think they meet the standards? And what artifacts they provide. These will demonstrate that they meet the standard. And these are 5 standards all in total. So that's why I said this is a document or demonstration of students' progress. And for the electronic portfolio, we say it can be a learning portfolio. So at the very beginning, this whole term is a learning blog, a learning portfolio. At the end of the term, when the students summarize everything and complete it, it's called formative portfolio because this is the time they will demonstrate their achievements, their progress. And also it can be easily turned into an employment portfolio. If they want to apply for a teaching job, they will say, I know how to use technology in classroom. Here is my demonstration. So that's much better than they talk. I know how to use this software. I know how to use that. It's more vivid there. So I use this almost in every different kind of subject. I know time is so limited. So I create a short website where I have my portfolios. I only choose 4 or 5 classes there. And if you are interested, you can go there and click my different class, there are more. I just before this workshop, I create this one so that some of you can get some idea if you want. And you are also very welcome to contact me if you need to, like you want to use it in class but you don't know what and how. I'm very happy to help you.
Can you tell us the website? I can't read it from here.
Okay, it's very easy to remember. blogfolios.weebly.com.
Oh, okay.
Weebly, W-E-E-B-L-Y. Blogfolios, B-L-O-G-F-O-L-I-O-S. Blogfolios.weebly.com.
What I'd like you folks to do before I get started with anything else or introductions and such, if you would please, and this will work best, of course, if you have something to write with, please, I want you to take a minute and write down some of the thoughts that you've had while our presenters have been going on. And I do mean 1 minute, and I have a stopwatch to prove it. So, on your own, please, go ahead and for 1 minute, write down some thoughts that you've been having as you've been listening to our presenters, please. Yeah, I don't need that on anymore. Okay, stop what you're doing, please. Now what I'll let you do next is go ahead and I want you to talk about what you've been thinking about with your next nearest neighbor. Then that might require a few of you to move around a little bit, but for the most part, it looks like people tend to be sitting fairly close to each other. It may be that you have to turn around and talk to somebody that's behind you. There are people that are next to you. That will work out just fine. So look around, please. I'm going to give you, go ahead, take 2 minutes. What I want you to do for the next 2 minutes is share some of the things with your neighbors. If it's a group of 3, that's fine, but pair is best. So go ahead, and I want people to share what they've been hearing so far with their next nearest neighbors, please. And again, 2 minutes on the clock now. Excuse me, folks. All right, time is up. Time is up. Thank you, thank you. All right, now I'd like to ask again. Do people have comments or questions for our panelists? Now that you've had a chance to think about it. You have things that you'd like to say. Bob, I know you're talkative. You got something, a question or comment for our panelists here so far?
I think we have one of the same kind of questions.
Okay, let's get one. One will be fine.
How does it work?
Okay, how does it work? Do we touch more specific?
She got close. I don't think, why shouldn't we get too close? But how does it actually work with a case study?
Okay, what I want to do without worrying about getting their answers yet, I'm just going to go ahead and write down some of the questions. So, how does it work? Do that. All right, just to pick up some random, we got a question up there. Yes, please.
I wanted to know how to motivate students to want to do this. I mean, I know it sounds like it would be obvious, these people these days are into Facebook, Twitter, and all that, and yet I find that when I've used systems like D2L or Blackboard, that students are lazy and they don't want to do the electronic stuff. If there's a discussion posted, they do what they're minimally required to do, and they don't continue on with it.
All right, fair enough. Okay. How about over here? How about a question or comment from either of you folks?
I guess in terms of science classes, it's similar to that, motivating students and engaging them to be in the moment, because a lot of them are distracted in the classroom.
Okay.
And they don't do the work outside the classroom.
How about would pay attention maybe work?
Sure.
All right. We'll go with that. I'll take one more.
Well, I'm new to USM. What do you teach?
I teach physics and astronomy. I'm waiting until I get done with this until I introduce myself on purpose. One more, please.
I want to learn how to do those blogs.
How to do the blogs. How to blog. I personally don't know much about blogging either, so that'd be something I might be interested in learning. All right, so what have we been doing here? First of all, let me introduce myself then. I'm Chris Sirola. I'm in the Department of Physics and Astronomy. And among other things that I do, I am our department's teaching expert. And what we're doing is an exercise in comparing and contrasting what we might call passive learning versus active learning. And I picked out this particular sort of approach as an example for something that you can do immediately in your classrooms. It doesn't really depend upon class size, but it's one of those things that's useful for really big classes. One of the problems we have with bigger classes is how do you get all the students engaged, right? That's one of the things. How do we motivate students? How do we get the students to pay attention? Well, one of the ways to do that is to start getting them actively engaged. Now, and so I wrote up over here on the board a passive versus active learning. What is that all about? Passive learning is what I'm doing with you folks this instant right now. Right now I am more or less giving you a lecture. And what you folks are doing is sitting there and listening to me tell you things, right? That is not really much in the way of learning. It's more of an entertainment form. It's an art form. It can be very good in those aspects, but it's not really conducive to a lot of in-depth learning. What you're doing now is just simply hearing me talk. It's not the same as reflection. Reflection is when you get a chance to take a moment and think to yourself, but you really don't have that opportunity to do that right now because I'm doing the talking. One of the things that scares teachers to death, I have learned, is silence. To have silence in the classroom, except on a test, right? Because then you demand silence. But otherwise, to have silence during a class, the teacher's not talking, the students are not appearing to be doing anything, that's like doom and gloom. That should never happen. But what happened actually when we did this exercise? I gave you folks a minute on purpose to take time to reflect upon what you've been hearing. Okay? Now, I didn't ask you to come up with answers, anything like that. I didn't ask for, I wanted more quick impressions here. But I gave you a chance to do what we call active learning. One version of active learning then is reflection. I think it was mentioned by both of our panelists here that they're interested in having the students reflect or get a chance to think about what they're doing, right? So this is another good example of that. But this particular example for mine, theirs is more like class project type stuff, right? This example of mine is something you can implement very quickly. You could do this tomorrow, for example, in a class. You don't have to have anything special equipment or set up anything extra. That's the advantage of this. The second thing I did is appeal to a different kind of learning, and that's interactive learning. We are a very social species, right? And a lot of what we want to do when we learn is to talk amongst each other. That helps to share ideas. And so that was another form of active learning. It wasn't the same as reflective learning, but it is active learning. And again, in both cases, when you are by yourself, say, writing down some thoughts, or when you were talking with your neighbors, you were doing active learning. You were engaged in the learning, weren't you? As opposed to just right now, listen to me talk about it. This particular example of active learning is called Think, Pair, Share. So if you've never heard of this, and there's a variety of versions of this sort of idea, but this is what it's actually called. You give your students a chance to think. You then pair them up, or depending, because this can happen, I go with groups of 3 if we need to. But you pair them up into groups to share, and then they share their thoughts. This generates a lot more interest. This generates a lot more questions. This keeps your students engaged. I will do this simple approach quite often in my classes. Now, to give you perspective on the sizes of my classes, my typical classes, I've got an intro physics class, which by some accounts is the most difficult intro core class we've got on campus. I give my students, about 150 students, by the way, roughly in that class. We will do this sort of activity just about at least once or twice every time we get together. Because I want them to be engaged. I want them to, I'll present a concept or show them a demonstration, or even make a prediction on something I'm about to do, which is another way to get them actively engaged. And then they have this opportunity, which they otherwise usually don't have, to get a chance to think about it, to share their thoughts, and then they have much more in the way of active engagement. They have much more in the way of questions to pester me with, which is kind of what the purpose of it is. So, another class I have, by the way, I've got an astronomy class, and that's close to 100 students. So I've got big sections. They aren't the biggest sections on campus, but they're decently big sections. And I can't go around and individually talk to every single student, right? Or even if I break them into groups. I can't visit every single student group. Or I'm going to have groups that are like 20 people apiece, and that's a little unwieldy. So how do you get people actively engaged in the class? We have a large classroom. This is one thing you can do. And the beauty of it is it doesn't take any extra equipment. It doesn't need any fancy work that done. You didn't even have to have a lot prepared ahead of time. I knew in general terms, and this will be my last comment before we go on. I knew in general terms what our other panelists were going to talk about, but I didn't know the specifics. We didn't get together and talk and go over each other's presentations in detail. We just had a general idea of what we were going to do. So I didn't know going in myself what they were going to talk about, and yet now I have some questions, just some thoughts up here to work with that would help me if I wanted to learn more. I've got some things that I can pursue now, and your students would too. All right, so I think we're
Very good.
back on to whatever we do next.
Well, we're going to have Q&A now. So the panel is